Thanks for tuning in to Know Wine in No Time. I'm your host Dave, and today we're coming to you live from the heart of Tuscany. And no trip to Tuscany would be complete without talking about two very classic, very specific Tuscan red wines. And one is Chianti, and the other is Chianti Classico. The romanticism of thinking of an old Chianti bottle in a wicker basket that actually sits on the table and harkens back to the days of old in Tuscany. That's how Chianti actually got its start. Today, most Chiantis and Chianti Classicos are in more utilitarian bottles rather than the old wicker basket, which, by the way, is called a fiasco. So, let's talk about Chianti first. So Chianti is the larger or broader of the two regions. It's in central Tuscany. And the heart of every Chianti red is Sangiovese. By law, minimum Sangiovese content in Chianti has to be at least 75%, but it can be as high as 100%. In Chianti Classico, however, Sangiovese content needs to be at least 80%, but it also can go up as high as 100%. That is a much smaller region, but Chianti and Chianti Classico are literally places or regions. So don't think of a Chianti as the inferior wine and the Classico as being a more classic version. Just different Sangiovese types to begin with. Now, one thing that is very interesting when we look at Chianti and Chianti Classico wines is this Black Rooster. Now, the Black Rooster will appear on every single bottle of Chianti Classico wines. So what does that mean? Well, it actually is the Black Rooster of the night. And here's the story. In the 13th century, the folks in Siena and Florence were kind of fighting over a disputed border between the two areas. And, as legend and lore would have it, the folks in the northern part, in Florence, decided what they would do is keep their rooster in a black box and not feed it any food for a couple of days prior to what would ultimately decide the dispute. And what that was a horse race. The people in the north would run south, and the people in south would run north, and wherever they would meet, that would be the new border. Now, because the people in the north kept their rooster in the dark and kept it up and didn't feed it, it actually crowed a bit earlier. So the people in the north got a head start and ultimately got more territory. So hence, the Black Rooster of the night will be on every bottle of Chianti Classico wine to kind of honor that legend. So, when we look at a Chianti or a Chianti Classico wine, there is one term to be familiar with beyond both Chianti and Chianti Classico, and that is the term Reserva. So, if we have a Chianti or Chianti Classico Reserva, that means that the Sangiovese-based wine has now spent 12 months in oak and then 13 months additional aging prior to release, so a little over 2 years. So let's go ahead and taste the wine. Today I have Loggia dei Fiori, and this is a Chianti Classico Reserva. So this would be one of those Sangiovese-based wines that spent 12 months in oak and 13 additional aging. So let's take a look at it. And we notice that this particular wine is fairly dark in color. It's a deep ruby or garnet, and pretty much opaque. You can slightly see through it, but not very much. If we swirl and take a little sniff, we'll notice that we get kind of aromas of plum, cherry, with a little bit of leather aromas that come off of there, giving the hint that this is going to be a dry wine. Now across the palate. Now this particular Chianti Classico Reserva starts out with bright cherry flavors, mid-palate, a nice acidic stripe, and then across the backside we notice that it finishes with a little bit of a caramel flair, certainly paying tribute to the oak that it was aged in, and a little hint of vanilla as well. So, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this Chianti Classico Reserva. That's all the time we have for now, and please tune in next time, and soon you'll know wine in no time.